My name is Shanice Williams, and I'm about to recount how my mother shielded me even after her passing, and how the man I cherished for 15 years revealed his true nature on the most tragic day of my existence. It commenced 2 days following my mother's interment. I was still draped in mourning attire, still weeping myself to sleep each night, still discovering her reading spectacles in unexpected corners of my home and shattering all over again. My mother, Gloria Patterson, had been my entire world. She raised me alone after my father departed when I was 7 years old. She held down 2, sometimes 3, jobs to ensure I had every necessity. She financed my college education. She was present at my wedding, her hand clasped with mine, a smile gracing her lips, though something in her eyes conveyed her apprehension about Marcus. I should have heeded that unspoken warning, but I was young and deeply enamored. Marcus possessed an undeniable charm, was remarkably handsome, and knew precisely what to say. We exchanged vows when I was 23, and for the initial few years our union seemed harmonious, or at least I believed it to be so. Marcus worked in sales, while I dedicated myself to teaching at the local elementary school. We owned a modest dwelling, a dependable automobile, and were actively constructing a shared future. My mother never voiced any direct criticism of Marcus. She was far too refined for such directness. Yet there were subtle instances, moments when she would regard him with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Times when she would draw me aside and inquire, "Darling, are you happy? Truly happy?" And I would invariably respond affirmatively, convinced I was. Reflecting now, I comprehend that my mother perceived things I, in my blindness, failed to notice. Marcus began to change approximately 5 years into our marriage. He became consumed by wealth, by social standing, by the possessions of others. He would drive through affluent neighborhoods, speaking of future triumphs and our eventual share of success. He started making disparaging remarks about the inadequate salary of teaching, about my mother's supposed financial mismanagement, and how we were deserving of more than our current circumstances afforded. I disregarded these warning signs because I loved him, because I believed marriage entailed navigating difficulties together, because my mother had instilled in me the values of devotion and commitment. 3 months before my mother's passing, she received a diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It emerged unexpectedly and progressed with alarming speed, far too rapidly. One day she was robust and vibrant, preparing Sunday feasts and lending her voice to the church choir. The next she lay in a hospital bed, informed she had a mere 6 months to live. She managed to hold on for 4. Those 4 months constituted the most challenging period of my life, yet they were also immeasurably precious. I requested a leave of absence from my teaching post to care for her. I moved into her residence to provide round-the-clock assistance. Marcus voiced his objections, claiming I was neglecting our marriage and that he required my presence at home. However, my mother's needs superseded his, and for the first time I asserted my boundaries. Throughout those 4 months, my mother and I engaged in profound conversations, reminiscing about our shared experiences, our regrets, and our aspirations. She shared anecdotes about my father that had remained untold until then. She spoke of her own aspirations and subsequent disappointments, and she repeatedly expressed her love for me and her fervent wish for my happiness. "Darling," she murmured one evening, roughly 2 weeks before she passed, "I need you to make me a promise." "Anything, Mother," I replied, clutching her fragile hand. "Promise me you'll remain strong. Promise me you'll assert yourself, no matter the circumstances. Promise me you won't allow anyone to diminish your sense of self-worth." I couldn't fathom the intensity of her plea. Nevertheless, I gave my word. "And darling," she continued, her voice a mere whisper, "promise me you'll place your trust in attorney Bernard Jackson. He has been my legal counsel for 2 decades, and he is a man of integrity. When the time comes, heed his counsel. Do you understand?" "I understand, Mother," I assured her. She squeezed my hand. Some individuals reveal their true character when they stand to gain something. Be vigilant, darling. Watch closely. At the time, I attributed her words to maternal protectiveness, perhaps a touch of anxiety brought on by her medication. I had no inkling she was attempting to warn me. My mother departed this world on a Tuesday morning in October. I was holding her hand. Marcus was at work. He claimed he could no longer take additional time off, having already missed too much. My dearest friend, Kesha, was present, however, as was Pastor Williams from our congregation. Mother passed peacefully, with me whispering, "I love you," repeatedly until her final breath. The funeral service was a poignant tribute. The entire church community was in attendance. Mother had profoundly impacted countless lives, offering assistance to numerous individuals. The choir performed her favorite hymns. Speakers shared heartfelt accounts of how Gloria Patterson had made a significant difference in their lives. I wept throughout the entire ceremony, and Marcus sat beside me, holding my hand, playing the part of the supportive husband. I should have sensed an impending issue when he repeatedly inquired about the will. "Did your mother leave any documentation?" he asked the evening before the funeral. "Marcus, I've just lost my mother. Can we not discuss this right now?" "I'm merely trying to be helpful, darling. We need to ascertain our financial standing. Did she possess any assets, property, or savings?" I was aware my mother owned her home outright. She had paid off the mortgage years prior. I also knew she had accumulated some savings, as she had always been frugal with her money, though I lacked specific details. And honestly, at that moment, I was indifferent. My sole desire was for my mother's return. The day after the funeral, I was at home, clad in my pajamas, surrounded by condolences and culinary offerings from church members, when Marcus entered the bedroom and sat beside me. "Shanice," he stated, "we need to have a conversation." I looked up at him, my eyes swollen from weeping. I had been crying all morning. "What is it?" He inhaled deeply, and for a fleeting instant I perceived a chilling, calculated expression on his face. "I believe we should separate," he declared. The words initially failed to register. I simply stared at him. "What?" "I've been contemplating this for some time. We've grown apart. You've been distant. I think we need a period of separation to determine if this marriage is truly viable." A profound numbness washed over my entire being. "Marcus, my mother just passed away. She died yesterday. We laid her to rest today. And you wish to discuss separation?" "I acknowledge the timing is unfortunate, but I've been harboring these feelings for months. I can no longer continue this way." "You've been harboring them?" My voice began to escalate. "While I was caring for my dying mother, you were contemplating leaving me." "Let's not make this overly dramatic, Shanice. We both acknowledge this marriage has been defunct for years." I was utterly astounded by what I was hearing. This man, the man I had loved for 15 years, was sitting in our bedroom on the day following my mother's funeral, informing me of his desire to depart. "Leave," I whispered. "What? Leave?" I shrieked this time. "Get out of this room and out of my sight." He rose slowly, and in that moment, I observed it again. That glacial gaze. "Very well, but we will need to address this eventually. And Shanice, you would be wise to consult an attorney as well." He departed, and I collapsed onto the bed, weeping with such intensity that I feared I might succumb to the sheer agony of it all. Kesha arrived an hour later. She had been checking on me daily since my mother's passing. Upon entering and finding me on the floor, still in my funeral attire, sobbing uncontrollably, she immediately sensed that something terrible had transpired. "Shanice, what's wrong? What happened?" I could barely articulate the words. He wants to leave me. Marcus wants to leave me. My mother is gone and now he's abandoning me as well. Kesha held me as I wept. That man is a fool, she repeated, a complete fool. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, my mother's face appeared, her voice urging me to be resilient. Yet I felt anything but strong. I felt utterly shattered. The following morning, Marcus returned. I heard him moving about in the living room. When I emerged, he was seated at the kitchen table, a folder before him. "What is that?" I inquired. "Divorce papers," he stated placidly, as if discussing the weather. "I've already filed. You merely need to sign them." I felt as though I had been physically struck. "You've already filed, Marcus. Mother passed away 2 days ago." 2 days. "I understand you're experiencing emotional distress, but this is for the best. Trust me." He slid the documents across the table. "My lawyer advises that if we proceed amicably, the process will be swift and straightforward. We can divide everything 50-50, sell the house, and move forward with our lives." 50-50? I struggled to comprehend the unfolding events. "This is about money, isn't it? This concerns my mother's inheritance." He had the audacity to appear offended. Why would you suggest such a thing?" "Because you're proposing an equal division of everything, because you chose to do this immediately after her death. Shanice's community property laws are unequivocal. Any assets acquired during the marriage are subject to equal division. I'm simply striving for fairness." Fairness? He believed it was fair to ambush me with divorce papers while I was immersed in grief over my mother's loss. "I require you to leave," I stated quietly. "We reside here together." I reiterated, "Leave, Marcus. Go stay with your brother. Find a hotel. I genuinely do not care, but I cannot bear to look at you at this moment." He stood, but before departing, he uttered words that sent a shiver of dread down my spine. "You should be aware that I consulted with a lawyer regarding your mother's estate. If she bequeathed you anything, it is technically considered marital property, since we are still married. Therefore, you might want to expedite the signing of those papers. The longer you delay, the more complicated matters will become." He exited, and I remained seated at the kitchen table, my gaze fixed on those divorce papers for a full hour. Then my mother's words resurfaced. "Trust attorney Bernard Jackson." I contacted his office that afternoon. The receptionist informed me that he had anticipated my call and could accommodate me the following day. This filled me with surprise. How could he have known I would reach out? Attorney Bernard Jackson's office was situated in a prestigious downtown building. I had met him on several occasions over the years, typically when Mother required updates to her will or assistance with legal matters. He was an older African-American gentleman, likely in his late 60s, with distinguished grey hair and gentle eyes. He had been practicing law since before I was born, and my mother placed absolute faith in him. As I entered his office the next day, he rose and embraced me. "Shanice, my dear, I am so profoundly sorry about Gloria. Your mother was an extraordinary woman." "Thank you," I responded, my voice trembling. He gestured for me to be seated, and I noticed several folders resting on his desk. "I understand you are navigating a profoundly difficult period, so I will endeavor to make this as concise as possible. Your mother visited me approximately 6 months ago to update her will and establish some trusts. 6 months ago, but she wasn't diagnosed until 3 months ago." "That is accurate. However, your mother was always meticulous in her planning. She wished to ensure everything was in order just in case." He opened one of the folders. "Now I must pose a question to you, and I require your utmost honesty. Has Marcus made any mention of an inheritance?" My stomach lurched. "How did you know?" Attorney Jackson's demeanor grew serious. "Because Gloria anticipated he would. In fact, She was so certain he would initiate divorce proceedings following her passing that she implemented very specific measures to safeguard you. What are you implying? He produced a document and slid it across the desk. Shanice, your mother has bequeathed you everything. The residence, valued at approximately $400,000, her savings accounts, totaling around $230,000, her life insurance policy amounting to an additional $500,000, and several investment accounts, collectively worth approximately $600,000. I stared at him in utter disbelief. That's nearly $2 million. $1,930,000 to be precise. My mind was a whirlwind. I knew Mother had savings, but I had no comprehension of the magnitude of her wealth. How? How did she accumulate so much? Your mother possessed exceptional financial acumen, Shanice. She invested wisely, she lived frugally, and she maintained a substantial life insurance policy from her years of service at the hospital. She meticulously built this wealth over 4 decades, and she desired for you to possess it. But Marcus said it would be considered community property. He said we would have to split it. Attorney Jackson offered a smile, the kind that conveyed a secret knowledge Marcus lacked. That is your husband's current belief. However, your mother ensured that outcome would not materialize. She established what is known as an inheritance protection trust. Every single cent she left you is held within this trust. And according to its terms, which she herself specified, that money belongs to you and you alone. It can never be classified as community property. It is entirely shielded from divorce proceedings. It is protected. I felt as though I couldn't breathe. She had known, she had foreseen his actions. Your mother was an exceptionally perceptive woman. She never expressed overt disapproval of Marcus to me. However, approximately a year ago, she consulted me regarding safeguarding an inheritance from divorce. She mentioned having a premonition. That was all, merely a feeling, and she wanted to guarantee that should anything befall her, you would be provided for under all circumstances. Tears streamed down my face. So Marcus cannot access any of it? Not a single penny? Indeed, there is more. He produced another document. Your mother also composed a letter for you. She instructed me to deliver it to you after I explained the trust. She stated, "You will comprehend everything once you read it." He handed me an envelope bearing my name, written in my mother's distinctive handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter began, "My dearest Chinese, if you are reading this, then I am no longer with you, and I surmise Marcus has revealed his true colors. Darling, I am profoundly sorry you must discover this truth in this manner, but it is imperative you understand something. I observed the transformation in him years ago. I witnessed his fixation on wealth, his discussions of affluence, how his interest seemed to center more on what you could provide him rather than who you are as an individual. I refrained from commenting, hoping I was mistaken. I hoped he would prove my suspicions incorrect. I hoped he loved you with the depth you so rightfully deserved. But a mother possesses an innate knowing. A mother always knows. I have dedicated the past year to ensuring that every penny I earned would be exclusively yours. This is not an attempt to control you from beyond the grave, but rather a desire to grant you liberation, freedom to depart if necessity dictates, freedom to embark on a new chapter if you so choose, freedom to forge the life you are destined to lead. The funds within that trust are yours. Utilize them judiciously. Employ them to care for yourself. And darling, please, I implore you, do not allow anyone to make you feel culpable for safeguarding your own well-being. You possess immense strength. You are intelligent. You are worthy of genuine love, not the conditional, calculated variety. Stand tall, my precious daughter. I am eternally with you. All my love, Mother. I was overcome with emotion. Attorney Jackson offered me a tissue box and allowed me a moment to regain my composure. "There is one final matter," he said gently. "Your mother stipulated that if Marcus initiated divorce proceedings within the first year following her passing, I was to promptly inform you and assist you with the divorce proceedings. She even allocated $50,000 specifically for your legal expenses. She meticulously considered every aspect, Shanice." I looked up at him through my tears. "So what do I do now?" "Now?" Attorney Jackson leaned back in his chair. "Now, we permit Marcus to believe he is succeeding. We allow him to think you intend to sign those papers and divide everything with him. And when he becomes complacent, when he anticipates obtaining $1 million," he paused, a broader smile emerging, "that is when we will reveal precisely what Gloria Patterson orchestrated to protect her daughter." For the first time since my mother's death, I felt a stir of something other than profound sorrow. I felt hope. And deep within, I sensed the nascent emergence of something else entirely: justice. I departed Attorney Jackson's office that day armed with a plan. It was not an intricate strategy, but it demanded something I wasn't certain I possessed. It required me to deceive, to feign ignorance, to allow Marcus to believe he was obtaining precisely what he desired, all while I meticulously prepared to dismantle his carefully constructed facade. "The key is patience," Attorney Jackson had advised me. "Allow him to fully reveal his hand. Let him expose his true character and meticulously document everything, every conversation, every demand, every reprehensible moment. Because when we go before the judge, I want them to witness the genuine Marcus Williams." I drove home slowly that afternoon, my mother's letter carefully folded within my purse. I must have reread it at least 10 times already, and with each reading I felt a surge of renewed strength. My mother had known. She had seen through Marcus when my adoration had rendered me incapable of seeing him clearly, and she had protected me in the only way she could. Upon arriving home, Marcus's car was in the driveway. My heart began to pound. I had to maintain composure. I had to feign ignorance regarding the trust, ignorance of the fact that every single cent was shielded from him. I entered the house to find him in the living room, engrossed in television as if nothing had transpired, as if he hadn't just irrevocably damaged our marriage while I was consumed by grief. "Hey," he said casually, "did you give any further thought to what I said about the papers?" I took a deep breath and sat down opposite him. This was it, time to perform. "I spoke with an attorney today." His eyes lit up. I could now perceive the avarice in them, now that I knew what to look for. "Yeah, what did they say?" "They suggested we should likely proceed with the divorce, as contesting it would only incur greater expense and complexity." He attempted to suppress a smile, but I observed it. "That's intelligent, Shanice. That demonstrates considerable maturity. I know this is challenging, but it is the right course of action." The right course of action? This man had the audacity to speak of what was proper. "The attorney also informed me about my mother's estate," I continued, carefully monitoring his reaction. "It's more substantial than I anticipated, considerably more." "How much more?" He was leaning forward now, attempting an air of casualness, but failing miserably. "Close to $2 million. I witnessed a complete transformation in his body language. His eyes widened, his breathing quickened, and for a fleeting moment he could not conceal the unadulterated joy that radiated from his face. $2 million. That's what our 15-year marriage is worth to him. Actually, half of $2 million. $1 million. Wow, he exclaimed, striving for a sympathetic tone. Your mother was quite successful. That's excellent, darling. That's truly wonderful. At least some positive outcome has emerged from this ordeal. Darling, he was addressing me as darling again, as if he hadn't just requested a divorce 2 days after my mother's funeral. Yes, I replied softly. The attorney indicated it would take a few weeks to finalize everything, the probate process and all that. Naturally, these matters require time. And Shanice, he moved closer to me on the couch. I want you to understand that despite our impending divorce, I still care about you. We can maintain civility throughout this process. We can still be equitable. Equitable, that word again. I should probably move back in, he continued, just until we finalize everything. It makes no sense for me to incur expenses for a hotel when we are both adults, capable of handling this maturely. Every fiber of my being yearned to scream at him to depart. But I recalled Attorney Jackson's counsel. Document everything, allow him to reveal his true self. Okay, I conceded, you can occupy the guest room. Over the subsequent 2 weeks, I observed Marcus undergo a startling metamorphosis into someone I no longer recognized. Or perhaps I was finally perceiving the individual he had always been. He began incessantly inquiring about the inheritance. When would the funds be accessible? Which accounts held them? Had I contemplated the division? He even proposed we should liquidate my mother's home immediately, while the market was favorable, and divide the proceeds. My mother's home, the dwelling where I spent my childhood, the place where she drew her last breath, and he wished to sell it as if it were merely another asset to be partitioned. Kesha visited almost daily. She could witness the unfolding situation, and it ignited her fury. "Girl, I don't know how you're managing to remain so composed," she remarked one afternoon as we sat in my mother's kitchen. I had begun spending more time at Mother's house, organizing her belongings. It was emotionally taxing, yet it also brought a sense of peace. Marcus never accompanied me. He claimed it was too somber. "I'm not composed," I confided in her. "I'm merely waiting." Waiting for what? I desperately wanted to disclose the existence of the trust, my mother's elaborate plan, but Attorney Jackson had advised strict discretion. The fewer individuals privy to the information, the better. Just biding my time, I stated. Kesha's insightful gaze met mine. My closest confidant since our high school days, we had navigated life's complexities side by side. "Shanice Williams, you're hatching something." A slight smile played on my lips. Perhaps. Whatever it entails, I pray it includes Marcus experiencing some sorrow. That man deserves every consequence headed his way. Little did she comprehend the accuracy of her words. That particular Sunday, I followed my usual routine, attending church, a habit I'd maintained since childhood. Pastor Williams, having known my mother and me for years, beckoned me aside after the service. "Sister Shanice, how are you enduring this?" "I'm managing, Pastor." His expression conveyed genuine concern. "I learned of your situation with Marcus. I'm truly sorry to hear that. News travels rapidly within our church community." "Thank you, Pastor. My door is perpetually open, should you ever wish to converse. And if you require anything at all, please inform me. Your mother was a cornerstone of this church, and we are committed to supporting our own." His words brought a welling of tears to my eyes. This was the very community my mother had fostered. These were the individuals who genuinely cared for me, not for any possessions I might have, but for who I fundamentally was. Following the service, several other congregants approached me with similar offers of solidarity. Sister Martha extended an invitation to dine with her. Brother Thompson volunteered assistance with any tasks at my mother's residence. Sister Jenkins simply offered a warm embrace and a whispered assurance. "Stay strong, dear. You are in God's hands." Upon my return home, Marcus was engrossed in his phone, his laughter and loud conversation filling the air. I distinctly heard him mention hitting the jackpot, just before he noticed my presence and abruptly terminated the call. "Who was that?" I inquired. "Just my brother. Nothing significant." He rose and stretched. Listen, I've been contemplating that once the funds materialize, perhaps we should each engage our own legal counsel to ensure everything is managed appropriately. Without disparaging your attorney, I believe independent representation is advisable for both of us. He sought to secure every cent he felt entitled to. That seems logical, I conceded, though the thought nauseated me. Excellent. I've already made some inquiries. A gentleman my brother suggested. He specializes in high net worth divorces. He delivered this with an unsettling casualness, as if it had been a long-held plan, which it very likely was. That evening, from the privacy of my car, parked discreetly down the street from my residence, I contacted Attorney Jackson. He has already secured legal counsel for his divorce proceedings, I informed him, someone who specializes in high-asset dissolutions. Very good, Attorney Jackson responded with composure. Let him expend his resources on expensive attorneys. It will prove futile. The trust is absolutely ironclad. Shanice, I have dedicated 40 years to this profession, and I have never encountered a more impeccably structured inheritance protection plan. Your mother anticipated every conceivable scenario. When shall we inform him? Shortly. I am awaiting one final element. Your mother instructed me to hold off until Marcus made a specific request. She indicated I would recognize it when I heard it. What kind of request, precisely? She predicted he would eventually implore you to provide him with funds before the divorce was finalized. He would fabricate a pretext, citing an immediate need, an unwillingness to delay. She stated that when this occurred, we would have definitive confirmation of his true nature. I pondered that conversation for days. What was my mother awaiting? What ultimate test did she envision? I discovered the answer 3 days later. While at my mother's house, sorting through her closet and overcome with emotion over her clothing that still held her lingering scent, Marcus called. Shanice, I need to discuss something of importance with you. What is it? Could you come home? I prefer not to handle this over the phone. I drove home with a growing sense of unease. Upon entering, I found Marcus seated at the kitchen table. Papers spread out before him. He appeared animated. Sit down, he instructed. I have an opportunity, and I require your assistance. What sort of opportunity? Do you recall my friend Derek from university? He is launching a new venture and is seeking investors. It's a technology startup with immense potential. Shanice? Immense. He is extending invitations to a select few, and he has offered me a chance to participate from the outset. I gazed at him, and I need $100,000 for this investment. I realize it sounds substantial, but consider the potential return. Derek projects we could see our investment triple within a year, possibly sooner. Marcus, we are in the process of divorcing. Why are you bringing this to my attention? He leaned forward, his voice softening, becoming more persuasive. Because technically we are still married, and technically your mother's assets remain community property until the divorce is finalized. Therefore, I was considering whether you could provide me with $100,000 now, as an advance on my portion. Then, once the divorce is concluded and we divide everything, we can reconcile the figures to reflect the amount you've already advanced. There it was, the very demand my mother had foreseen. He wished for me to hand over funds immediately, even before any certainty of his entitlement. A surge of anger, hot and fierce, coursed through me. Yet I recalled Attorney Jackson's counsel. Maintain composure, document all interactions. I'm uncertain, Marcus. That's a considerable sum. But consider it, Shanice. If this venture proves profitable, it means more wealth for both of us to share. It is in your best interest as well. In my best interest. This man genuinely believed I was a fool. May I have some time to consider it? I inquired. Certainly, but Derek requires a response by Friday. This opportunity will not remain available indefinitely. I departed the house and proceeded directly to Attorney Jackson's office. I didn't even bother to call ahead. I simply arrived and thankfully he was available. He requested the funds I stated as soon as I entered his office, $100,000 for some spurious investment scheme. Attorney Jackson offered a smile, but it was not a benevolent one. It was the smile of a legal professional who had just received precisely what he required. Then it is time. It is time to reveal Gloria's plan. What are our next steps? We shall convene a meeting. You, myself, Marcus, and his high-priced divorce attorney. We will convene collectively and meticulously, outline the precise trajectory of this divorce. And Shanice, he regarded me with gravity. I need you to be prepared, for when Marcus uncovers the truth, the aftermath will not be pleasant. I am prepared, I affirmed, and I meant it. The meeting was scheduled for the subsequent Monday at Attorney Jackson's offices. I informed Marcus that our sole objective was to deliberate on the divorce terms and the equitable distribution of assets. He seemed enthusiastic, likely anticipating the imminent acquisition of his $1 million. He had no inkling of what was to come. That Sunday, I returned to church. I offered prayers with an intensity I had never before mustered. I prayed for fortitude. I prayed for courage. I prayed that my mother could witness this, that she might know I was finally asserting myself as she had always wished. After the service, Keisha grasped my arm. Girl, what's unfolding tomorrow? There's a certain look in your eyes. Everything, I replied. Everything is happening tomorrow. Monday morning, I awoke early and donned my most refined attire, a navy blue suit my mother had gifted me for my 30th birthday. She had often remarked that every woman should possess a power suit for significant occasions. Evidently, she foresaw this moment. Marcus was already attired and prepared. It's a momentous day, he remarked. Finally, we shall resolve all of this. Yes, I responded, finally. We travelled to Attorney Jackson's office separately. Upon my arrival, Marcus was already present with his legal representative, a suave individual clad in an expensive suit named Richard Barnes. They were both exuding smiles and conversing as if they were old acquaintances. Attorney Jackson extended a professional greeting to all and invited us to take our seats at the conference table. I occupied one side with Attorney Jackson. Marcus and his attorney sat opposite us. Thank you all for attending, Attorney Jackson commenced. We are gathered today to discuss the dissolution of the marital union between Shanice and Marcus Williams and to address the division of assets. Before we proceed, Marcus's attorney interjected, I wish to ensure we are all in agreement regarding the community property under consideration. My client has provided me with documentation indicating that Mrs. Williams's mother recently passed away, leaving an estate valued at approximately $1,700,000. Given that this inheritance was received during the marriage, it falls under community property laws and should be divided equally between both parties. Attorney Jackson nodded calmly. I am apprised of your stance, Mr. Barnes. However, there are certain details pertaining to Mrs. Patterson's estate that your client appears to be unaware of. Marcus frowned. What details? Attorney Jackson retrieved a folder and slowly opened it. Mrs. Gloria Patterson, in her wisdom and foresight, established an inheritance protection trust 6 months prior to her passing. Every asset she bequeathed to her daughter was placed within this trust, subject to very specific terms. Trusts can still be considered community property, depending on their structure, Marcus's attorney remarked. Not this particular one, Attorney Jackson countered, his voice acquiring a sharper edge. This trust was meticulously crafted to safeguard Mrs. Shanice Williams's inheritance from any claims by her spouse in the event of a dissolution of marriage. It is an irrevocable trust with Mrs. Williams as the sole beneficiary. According to Texas statutes, and I have the relevant legal precedents available for your review, assets transferred into such a trust before the initiation of divorce proceedings are classified as separate property and are not subject to division. A profound silence descended upon the room. Marcus's complexion began to shift. What are you implying? We are married. Half of everything belongs to me. Not in this circumstance, Attorney Jackson stated placidly. He slid a document across the table. This is the trust instrument. You will observe that it was executed 6 months ago, well in advance of your filing for divorce. You will also note that it explicitly precludes any spousal claims to the assets. Marcus's attorney was rapidly scanning the document, and I could perceive his growing realization of its implications. This cannot be lawful, Marcus exclaimed, his voice escalating. She is not permitted to do this. We are married. It is entirely legal, Attorney Jackson affirmed. And I should also mention, Mr. Williams, that there is more. Mrs. Patterson also penned a detailed letter articulating her motivations for structuring the trust in this manner. In it, she conveyed apprehension regarding your financial intentions and your treatment of her daughter. While the letter does not carry legal weight, it offers a remarkably clear depiction of her mindset and her desires. Marcus rose so abruptly that his chair toppled backward. That elderly woman had no authority. What's your language? I stated quietly. All eyes turned to me. It was the first utterance I had made since the meeting commenced. Never again disrespect my mother. Not now, not ever. Marcus was breathing heavily, his countenance contorted with fury and disbelief. You are privy to this. You have been aware of this all along, and you permitted me to believe? He halted his sentence, inadvertently revealing his admission. To believe what, Marcus? I inquired, my voice now steady. That you were on the verge of acquiring $1 million? That you could initiate divorce proceedings 2 days after my mother's funeral and depart wealthy? Is that what you envisioned? We are married, he bellowed. I am entitled to half of all our possessions. Actually, Attorney Jackson interjected calmly, you are entitled to half of the marital assets, the residence you occupy, which you both own jointly, your vehicles, your savings accounts. However, Mrs. Williams's inheritance is not classified as a marital asset. It never was and it never will be. Marcus's attorney cleared his throat. We shall contest this. We will pursue legal action. No judge will sanction one spouse, concealing nearly $2 million from the other. You are welcome to attempt it, Attorney Jackson responded. However, I must caution you, I have practiced family law for 42 years, and I have never lost a case involving an inheritance trust, not a single one. And Mr. Barnes, I am aware of your considerable fees. I understand you charge approximately $500 per hour. Therefore, you might wish to inform your client that challenging this trust will incur tens of thousands of dollars in legal expenses, and he will ultimately be unsuccessful. The law is unequivocally clear on this matter. I observed Marcus's expression as the reality gradually dawned upon him. He would not receive a single penny of my mother's fortune. All his meticulous planning, his manipulative tactics, his feigned concern and pronouncements of fairness, it had all been in vain. You orchestrated this, he declared, his voice laced with venom. You and that deceased woman, I have no recollection of deciding to stand. I don't recall moving, yet suddenly I was on my feet, my voice resonating with power and conviction. Depart. Leave this office immediately. Remove your belongings from my residence and extricate yourself from my life. You have 24 hours to vacate, or I shall contact the authorities and have you forcibly removed. Shanice, he began, but I cut him short. 15 years, Marcus. I devoted 15 years of my life to you. I cherished you. I supported you. I stood by you. and the instant you perceived financial gain, you revealed your true character. My mother discerned it. She saw through you when I was too blinded to do so, and she ensured you could never inflict the harm you intended. Marcus appeared as though he intended to utter further remarks, but his attorney placed a hand on his arm. "Let us proceed," Mr. Barnes advised softly. "There is nothing further we can accomplish here." They departed, and I remained, trembling, observing their exit. Attorney Jackson placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You handled that exceptionally well, Shanice. Your mother would be immensely proud." I resumed my seat and exhaled a breath. I felt I had been holding for weeks. What is the next course of action? We will now submit a response to his divorce petition. We will agree to the divorce, but will unequivocally state that the only assets subject to division are the genuine marital assets, the house, the vehicles, the joint accounts. Your inheritance is not a matter for negotiation. He is welcome to contest it, but he will lose, and his attorney is aware of this. How long will this process take? In Texas, there is a mandatory 60-day waiting period for divorce proceedings. Following that, if he raises no further objections, the process should conclude relatively swiftly, perhaps within 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months, half a year until I would finally be free of Marcus Williams. There is something else, Attorney Jackson stated. He produced another envelope. Your mother left you one additional letter. She instructed me to deliver it to you after Marcus became aware of the trust. She indicated you would require it. I accepted the envelope with trembling hands and opened it. My dearest Shanice, if you are reading this, then Marcus has discovered the truth, and you have witnessed his genuine character. I am profoundly sorry, my darling. I regret the pain you have endured. I regret that you were compelled to learn that the man you loved was never who you believed him to be. But I need you to grasp one crucial point. This is not your fault. You loved with your entire heart, just as I instilled in you. You were loyal and devoted as I taught you to be. There is absolutely nothing amiss with your nature. The issue has perpetually resided with him. You are liberated now, my darling, free to embark on a new chapter, free to discover genuine love, should that be your desire, free to construct a life that brings you joy. The fortune I have bequeathed to you is not merely monetary. It represents liberation. It signifies choices. It marks a new beginning. Do not permit yourself to experience guilt for safeguarding yourself. Do not harbor any remorse for my actions. I would repeat them 1,000 times over to ensure your security. You are my most significant achievement, Shanice, not the wealth I accumulated, nor the property I acquired. You, the beautiful, strong, kind woman you have become. That is my enduring legacy. Now go forth and live, my sweet girl. Truly live, pursue your happiness, and know that wherever I may be, I am watching over you, and I am overwhelmingly, immensely proud. With all my love forever and always, Mama. Tears streamed down my face in Attorney Jackson's office. I wept for my mother, for my marriage, for all the years I had squandered on a man who had never truly loved me. Yet amidst those tears, there was also a sense of profound relief and burgeoning hope. Once my weeping subsided, I looked up at Attorney Jackson. What did I do to deserve her? You were born to her, he replied simply, and Gloria Patterson dedicated her life's mission to protecting you, even from beyond the grave. That, Shanice, is the essence of true love. Remember that. I drove home that afternoon, my mother's letter resting on the passenger seat. As I pulled into the driveway, Marcus's car was conspicuously absent. Upon entering, I discovered the guest room vacant. He had removed his clothing, his laptop, everything that belonged to him. On the kitchen table, he had left a note. You will regret this, Janice. You and that lawyer believe you are exceptionally astute, but I possess knowledge of you and of your mother. This is far from over. I read the note twice, then promptly contacted Attorney Jackson. He has left a threatening note, I informed him. Threatening in what manner? I read it aloud to him. A brief pause ensued on the line, followed by Attorney Jackson's utterance, which sent a chill down my spine. Shanice, I need you to exercise extreme caution. Individuals like Marcus do not respond well to rejection, particularly when financial matters are involved. I require you to document everything. Preserve that note. Should he attempt to contact you, do not respond without my presence. And if he appears at your residence or your place of employment, contact the police immediately. Do you comprehend? Do you believe he would resort to violence? I believe a man capable of initiating divorce proceedings 2 days after your mother's funeral is capable of anything. Better safe than regretful. That night, sleep eluded me. Marcus's note consumed my thoughts. What did he mean by possessing knowledge? What was he planning? I learned the answer the following morning when Keisha called, her voice laced with panic. Shanice, turn on your computer. You must see this immediately. What is it? Just do it. Go to Facebook. Look at Marcus's profile. I opened my laptop with a growing sense of dread. Upon accessing Marcus's Facebook page, I felt a wave of nausea. He had posted an extensive message which had already been shared dozens of times. I need to present my perspective, it began. My soon-to-be ex-wife has been disseminating falsehoods about me, attempting to portray me as the antagonist. The reality is I sought a divorce due to her years of emotional abuse. She systematically isolated me from my friends and family. She exercised complete control over our finances. And now, with her mother's passing and her subsequent inheritance of a substantial fortune, she is attempting to entirely disown me. Despite my unwavering support through every challenge, my steadfast presence while she neglected our marriage to care for her mother. This is how she repays me, by turning everyone against me and withholding funds that rightfully belong to both of us. I am not seeking pity. I merely desire for people to be apprised of the truth. The comments section presented a mixture of support for Marcus and inquiries directed at me. Individuals I had never encountered were labeling me as avaricious, heartless, a gold digger within my own marriage, funded by my own mother's inheritance. I immediately telephoned Attorney Jackson, my hands trembling. He is disseminating untruths about me online. He is proclaiming me abusive and controlling. What course of action should I pursue? You are to take no action, Attorney Jackson stated firmly. Do not respond. Do not engage. This is a classic manipulative tactic, Shanice. He is attempting to control the narrative, to position himself as the victim. However, he fails to grasp one crucial point. Social media pronouncements hold no weight in court. Facts are paramount. Evidence is crucial, and we possess all the necessary evidence. But people are believing him. They are sharing his post. They are circulating abhorrent statements about me. I understand the emotional toll, my dear. However, those who truly know you are aware of the truth. The opinions of everyone else are inconsequential. Allow him to vent online. In fact, it benefits our case by illustrating his character, his propensity for deceit and manipulation. I wished to believe him, but it proved challenging. By the conclusion of the day, Marcus's post had been shared more than 100 times. Individuals from our church were sending me messages, inquiring if these accusations were accurate. My school principal contacted me to ascertain if everything was satisfactory. Even some of my own cousins were questioning my fairness towards Marcus. The fabrications were spreading with an alarming speed that I was powerless to impede. And then, 3 days later, an event transpired that altered everything. I returned home from school to find my front door ajar. I stood frozen on my porch, my gaze fixed upon the open door. My heart pounded with such ferocity that I could hear it in my ears. Every instinct within me urged me to flee, to summon law enforcement, to refrain from entering. Yet this was my home, my sanctuary. I withdrew my phone and with trembling fingers dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? An intruder has breached my residence. The main entrance stands ajar and uncertainty lingers regarding their continued presence within. The emergency dispatcher maintained communication throughout the dispatch of law enforcement to my location. She advised me to remain outdoors, situated safely in my vehicle. I waited inside my locked car, observing the gaping front door, experiencing a profound sense of violation unlike anything I'd previously encountered. The police arrived within 10 minutes. 2 officers proceeded inside, while a third remained with me. After an interminable period, one of the officers emerged. "Ma'am," he stated, "whoever was here has departed, but you'll want to come inside and witness this." I followed him into my dwelling, and the scene that greeted me elicited a gasp. The interior was in utter disarray. The living area resembled the aftermath of a devastating storm. Couch upholstery was ripped open, expelling its filling. Framed photographs lay shattered on the floor, shards of glass dispersed across the carpet. In the kitchen, cupboard doors hung open and broken crockery littered the sink. Red spray paint proclaimed greedy across the refrigerator. However, the bedroom proved to be the most distressing. Everything had been ransacked. My wardrobe's contents were strewn about. My jewelry case was empty, yet the jewels themselves had not been stolen. Instead, they were scattered across the floor and trampled. My mother's pearls, the very ones she wore on her wedding day, were reduced to fragments. On the mirror above my dresser, the same crimson spray paint declared, "You'll pay for this." I was rendered breathless and incapacitated, simply standing amidst the wreckage of my sanctuary, the place that should have provided security. The officer spoke, but his words were drowned out by a ringing in my ears. Eventually, his voice pierced through the fog. "Ma'am, do you have any idea who might have done this?" "My husband," I whispered. "My soon-to-be former husband, Marcus Williams." They meticulously documented everything with photographs and dusted for fingerprints. They inquired about Marcus, his whereabouts, whether he retained any keys to the house, and if he had a history of violence. I answered their questions with a sense of weariness. One of the officers regarded me with concern. "Ma'am, do you have a safe place to stay for the night? I don't believe you should be here alone." I contacted Keisha. She arrived within 20 minutes and was visibly distressed upon witnessing the extent of Marcus's damage. "That's unhinged," she repeated, "utterly unhinged." "You're staying with me," she asserted. "Gather your belongings. Actually, don't bother with your things. I'll replace anything you need. Just get out of this house." I retrieved my laptop, my phone charger, and the envelope containing my mother's letters. Everything else could wait. That evening, resting in Keisha's guest room, I telephoned Attorney Jackson. "He broke into my house," I stated, my voice devoid of emotion. "He destroyed everything. He spray-painted threats on my walls." A prolonged silence ensued on the line. "Did you contact the police?" "Yes," I replied. "They filed a report. They're actively seeking him." "Excellent, Shanice," he responded. "Listen to me very carefully. This development is advantageous for our case. I realize that sounds callous, but it's the truth. Marcus has effectively provided us with precisely what we require. This is no longer merely a divorce. It's criminal activity, breaking and entering, property destruction, and potentially criminal intimidation. Any judge reviewing these circumstances will comprehend his character instantly." "I'm not concerned with the case," I declared, and I meant it. "I simply wish to feel secure again." "I understand, dear," he said, "and you will, I guarantee it. We will ensure he can never harm you again." The following morning, I returned to the house with law enforcement to formally document the damage in daylight. Upon my arrival, a crowd had gathered in my front yard. Initially, I panicked, assuming it was the press, but then I recognized familiar faces: Sister Martha from church, Brother Thompson, Pastor Williams, and even some neighbors I barely knew. Sister Martha hurried towards me as I exited my car. "Honey, we heard what happened," she exclaimed. "No one should endure this alone. We're here to help you with the cleanup." Tears welled in my eyes as I stood in my driveway. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, we do," Pastor Williams stated firmly. "This is what family does. This is what our church family does. You are Gloria's daughter, and that makes you our daughter as well." For the subsequent 6 hours, these individuals, my community, assisted me in restoring my home. They scrubbed paint from the walls and the refrigerator, swept up shattered glass, and helped me sort through salvageable items and those destined for disposal. Sister Jenkins even brought food, recognizing that one cannot clean on an empty stomach. As we worked, they shared anecdotes about my mother, recalling instances where she had aided each of them. Brother Thompson recounted how my mother had lent him money years ago, averting his potential foreclosure, and never requested its return. Sister Martha described how my mother had sat with her in the hospital during her daughter's illness, praying for hours. "Your mother was an exceptional woman," Pastor Williams remarked, "and she raised you to be exceptional as well. Do not allow Marcus Williams to diminish that in you." By evening, my home was largely restored to its previous state. Faint paint marks lingered on the walls, and certain items remained irreplaceable. Nevertheless, it was habitable. It felt like home once more. That night, the police contacted me. They had located Marcus at his brother's residence. He had been apprehended and charged with breaking and entering, vandalism, and making terroristic threats. He was incarcerated, with his bond hearing scheduled for the following day. "Would you like to be present?" the detective inquired. "You have the right to present a victim impact statement if you choose." I contemplated the request. A part of me never wished to see Marcus again, yet another part felt compelled to meet his gaze and convey that he had not broken me. "I will be there," I confirmed. Attorney Jackson accompanied me to the bond hearing. We sat in the courtroom and observed as Marcus was brought in. Clad in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, he appeared disheveled, his eyes red, his face unshaven. He seemed diminished somehow, less imposing. Upon seeing me, he attempted a smile, a cordial gesture as if we were still on friendly terms, as though he hadn't just devastated my home and issued threats. The prosecutor presented evidence of Marcus's actions, photographs of my residence, copies of the menacing messages, and character testimonies from neighbors who had observed Marcus's vehicle at my home that afternoon. Marcus's attorney argued that it was a domestic dispute that escalated out of control, attributing Marcus's actions to extreme emotional distress stemming from the divorce and asserting he posed no danger. Then it was my turn to speak. I stood, my legs trembling, but my voice was firm as I began. "Your Honor," I stated, "I was married to Marcus Williams for 15 years. I loved him. I trusted him. I believed we were building a life together. However, 2 days after my mother's funeral, he initiated divorce proceedings, and upon learning he would not receive the inheritance he felt entitled to, he revealed his true nature. He disseminated falsehoods about me on social media, attempted to alienate everyone against me, and subsequently broke into my home and vandalized it. He destroyed items that are irreplaceable, including jewelry that belonged to my late mother. He spray-painted threats on my walls. His intent was to instill fear, to make me feel violated and unsafe in my own home. I met Marcus's gaze directly, but what he fails to grasp is that my mother prepared me for this. She recognized his character years ago and ensured my protection. And now I see him clearly as well. He is not frightening, he is simply pathetic. He is a man who believed he could manipulate and intimidate. His way to wealth he did not earn and does not deserve. I turned back to the judge. Your Honor, I do not wish for this man to be anywhere near me. I do not want him near my home. I request a restraining order and the full legal consequences for his actions. The judge regarded Marcus with disdain. Mr. Williams, she stated, I have served on this bench for 20 years and have witnessed considerable misconduct, but your actions here are particularly contemptible. Infiltrating your estranged wife's residence and destroying her property out of anger over a divorce is not the behavior of a man. It is the behavior of a child throwing a tantrum. She set his bond at $50,000 and granted me a temporary restraining order, mandating Marcus remain at least 500 feet from me, my residence, and my workplace at all times. As he was led away, he glanced back at me one last time, not with a smile this time, but with tears in his eyes. I felt nothing. Over the ensuing 3 months, the divorce proceedings advanced. Marcus attempted to contest the trust, as his lawyer had predicted, but Attorney Jackson had been correct. The trust was irrefutable. Every judge who reviewed it reached the same conclusion. The inheritance was unequivocally mine. Marcus's criminal case proceeded separately. He ultimately entered a guilty plea to the charges of vandalism and breaking and entering in exchange for probation and restitution for the damages to my home. The prosecutor informed me he was fortunate to avoid jail time. During those months, an interesting shift occurred. Individuals who had believed Marcus's fabricated social media posts began reaching out to offer apologies. They had learned of his actions at my house and had witnessed him in court, realizing his deceit. Some I forgave, others I did not. The truth is, those who truly knew me and loved me never doubted me in the first place. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in late January, approximately 4 months after my mother's passing. Attorney Jackson and I attended court. Marcus was absent. His lawyer indicated he could no longer afford to contest and had agreed to all our terms. The final settlement was straightforward. We sold the house and divided the proceeds equally. He retained his vehicle, I kept mine. We divided our modest joint savings account. My inheritance totaling $1,700,000 remained exclusively mine, precisely as my mother had intended. As the judge signed the final documents, a burden I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted. You are free, Attorney Jackson said with a smile. How does it feel? It feels like I can breathe again, I replied. That Sunday I attended church and experienced genuine joy for the first time in months. The choir sang Amazing Grace and I joined in, tears streaming down my face. Following the service, Pastor Williams beckoned me to the front. Church family, he announced, I want us to take a moment to celebrate Sister Shanice. Many of you know she has endured a difficult period, but she stood strong, she relied on her faith and emerged from the fire refined. Let us applaud her. The entire congregation erupted in applause, exclamations of Amen and Yes, Lord. People approached to embrace me, express their pride, and welcome me into this new phase of my life. Sister Martha grasped my hands, looking me directly in the eye. Your mother is immensely proud of you right now. You know that, don't you? I nodded, too overcome with emotion to speak. After church, I drove to the cemetery where my mother was interred. I sat beside her grave and recounted everything that had transpired. You were right, Mama, I said. You were right about everything, and you saved me. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I don't know how you knew, but I am so grateful you did. A gust of wind rustled the leaves in the surrounding trees, and for a fleeting moment, I could have sworn I detected the scent of her perfume. I'm going to be all right, I told her. I'm going to use this gift you bestowed upon me to build something beautiful. I'm going to travel. I'm going to return to school and pursue my master's degree, as I always desired. I'm going to live, Mama. Truly live just as you instructed me. I remained there for an hour, conversing with her, sensing her presence. As I finally departed, I felt lighter than I had in years. Over the subsequent months, I began constructing my new life. I utilized a portion of my inheritance to completely renovate my mother's house. I couldn't bear to sell it, so I transformed it into something lovely, a place where I could stay when I needed to feel connected to her. I enrolled in graduate school to obtain my master's in education, a lifelong aspiration that had previously been hindered by time and financial constraints. Now I possessed both. I commenced traveling. Initially, short excursions, a weekend in New Orleans, a few days in Atlanta, but gradually my confidence grew. I journeyed to Ghana for 2 weeks, tracing segments of my ancestral lineage. I visited Paris, a dream my mother had cherished but never realized. I carried her photograph with me everywhere. Slowly, month by month, I began to heal. One day, approximately a year after the divorce was finalized, Kesha and I were having lunch when she posed a question that had been occupying my thoughts. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Any of it? The years with Marcus?" I considered her question carefully. "No," I finally replied. "I don't regret loving him. I don't regret attempting to make it work, because that is who I am. That is who Mama raised me to be, someone who loves completely and tries earnestly. What I do regret is not recognizing the warning signs sooner, not trusting my mother's instincts. But even that taught me something valuable." "What's that?" she inquired. "That sometimes the people who love us see things we cannot, and we should trust them. My mother knew Marcus was not right for me, and she loved me enough to protect me, even after she was gone. That is the kind of love I wish to focus on now. Not the artificial affection Marcus offered, but the genuine, profound, sacrificial love my mother demonstrated." Keisha raised her glass. "To Gloria Patterson, the wisest woman we ever knew. To Mama," I concurred, clinking my glass against hers. Later that month, I undertook an action I had been contemplating for some time. I established a scholarship fund in my mother's name. Annually, it would provide financial assistance to a student from our community aspiring to attend college but lacking the means. Just as my mother had worked multiple jobs to support my education. Now her legacy would empower other young individuals to achieve their aspirations. At the inaugural scholarship ceremony, I addressed the church community, sharing my narrative. Not the entirety, as some aspects remained too painful and personal. However, I spoke of how my mother had safeguarded me, how she had perceived dangers I could not, and how she had employed her wisdom and foresight to ensure my future well-being. "My mother taught me that true love protects," I stated. "It does not control, it does not manipulate, and it comes without conditions. It simply protects. And when you have that kind of love in your life, when you know someone loved you enough to consider your future, even knowing they would not be present to witness it, that is everything. That is the kind of love worth living for." Not a dry eye remained in the church. 2 years after my mother's passing, I finally experienced true happiness. Not the superficial contentment I had feigned with Marcus, where I constantly tried to convince myself everything was satisfactory, but genuine, profound happiness. The kind that arises from self-awareness, from liberation, from living authentically. I had cultivated a life of which I was proud. I had my career, which I cherished more than ever. I had my education, I had my community, I possessed my independence, and most importantly, I had found peace. Occasionally, people inquire if I have resumed dating, if I am prepared to seek love. I invariably smile and offer my honest response. I am not actively searching, but neither am I evading it. If it arrives, it arrives. And if it does not, I am perfectly content on my own. Because that is the ultimate gift my mother bestowed upon me. Not solely financial security, though that was a component, but freedom. The liberty to choose my own trajectory. The freedom to decline what does not serve me. The freedom to await genuine affection rather than settling for an imitation. The freedom to embrace happiness on my own terms. Marcus attempted to contact me on several occasions over the years, initially through mutual acquaintances, then via email. He consistently sought to apologize, explain, or rectify the situation. I never responded. There was nothing he could articulate that I needed to hear. That chapter of my existence was irrevocably closed. I learned through indirect channels that he eventually relocated to another state and remarried swiftly to someone else. I hoped for her sake that he had gleaned valuable lessons from our shared experience. However, in truth, he occupied little space in my thoughts. He had consumed sufficient of my life and my mental landscape. On the 3rd anniversary of my mother's demise, I visited her grave, as I did annually. This time I brought flowers and a letter I had composed for her. "Dear Mamma," I read aloud, "it has been 3 years since you departed, and I wish for you to know that I am well. In fact, I am more than well. I am thriving. I am living the life you envisioned for me. I am free, I am happy, and I am utilizing everything you bequeathed to me. Not merely the financial resources, but the lessons, the strength, the wisdom to forge something beautiful. You outmaneuvered Marcus, Mama. You saw through him when I was too blinded by love to perceive the truth. And you ensured that, even from beyond the grave, you could protect me. That is the most potent act of love I have ever witnessed. I think of you every single day. I see you in the students I teach. I feel you when I make decisions concerning my life. I hear your voice urging me to stand tall, to be strong, to never allow anyone to diminish me. Thank you, Mama. Thank you for every sacrifice. Thank you for every extra shift you worked, every dream you deferred, every difficult choice you made so I could have a better future. Thank you for loving me enough to perceive a danger I could not. Thank you for protecting me one final time. I promise you I am making you proud. I promise I am living, truly living, just as you instructed. And I promise that every positive action I undertake in this world, every person I assist, every life I touch, is in your honor. I love you eternally, Mama. Rest peacefully. Your daughter is going to be perfectly fine." I sat by her grave as the sun descended, enveloped by her presence, her love, her pride. And for the first time since her passing, I experienced complete serenity, for my mother had granted me the most profound gift a parent can bestow upon a child. Not wealth, though that was beneficial, but wisdom, protection, freedom, and an unconditional love that transcended the boundary between life and death. Marcus believed he had struck gold upon Mama's death. He envisioned profiting handsomely from her life's endeavors. But what he failed to grasp, what he could never comprehend, was that my mother was 10 steps ahead of him throughout. She understood his true nature precisely, and she ensured he would never benefit from her hard work or her love for me. That is the genuine narrative here. It is not about a divorce, an inheritance, or retribution, but about a mother's love so potent, so deliberate, so protective, that it reached across the veil, separating life and death to save her daughter once more. And now, I live each day with the knowledge that I was loved in such a profound way, that I am still loved in such a way, that my mother's love did not cease with her life. It simply transformed into protection, into freedom, into the beautiful existence I now lead. Some might deem my mother's actions harsh or unjust, But those individuals have never loved someone sufficiently to shield them from their own blind spots. They have never cared enough to anticipate and plan for dangers their loved ones cannot yet perceive. My mother did, and because she did, I am free. I drove home from the cemetery that evening with a heart full of gratitude. As I pulled into the driveway of my home, truly my home now, not a dwelling shared with someone who did not value me, I felt a profound sense of thankfulness, grateful for the past, which instilled strength within me, grateful for the present, which granted me peace, and grateful for the future, which was mine to shape as I saw fit. Inside, I gazed at the framed photograph of Mama gracing my mantle. Her face was alight with a radiant smile, the kind that instantly brightened any space. "We achieved it, Mum," I breathed, a sense of triumph washing over me. Victory is ours. And in my heart, I felt her own smile broaden, beaming with pride for the person I had blossomed into. Pride, too, that her unwavering affection, her insightful guidance, and her protective embrace had empowered me to embrace my true self, to become the individual I was destined to be. I was liberated, resilient, joyful, and at last I had found my sanctuary. Thank you for lending me your ears. Kindly consider subscribing, and please feel welcome to share your own experiences in the section below. Your perspective holds significance.